Hey, my name's Patrick Lewis, and you're watching the Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press. Today I'm happy to be joined by Patrick Lewis. How's it going?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. It's
Of
good to be here.
course, I'm excited to be chatting with you because you have a kind of big part, a new character in Cobra Kai season 6, part 2, which we'll get into in just a moment. But to
Yeah.
start off, what can you share about your background in the arts and what sparked that passion in you to pursue this as a career?
That's a great question. It's sort of the last thing that I thought I'd be doing, which is really funny because now it's like my absolute favorite thing. It was never like in high school. If you told me I'd be an actor, I'd be like, oh, you're crazy. Like, I'm not going to do that. It's just not that I like had anything against it. It just like wasn't something that was in the forefront of my mind. I just never considered it as an option. I played a lot of sports and I just never really thought of it as like something that I would end up doing. And then I went to college. I went to a small liberal arts school and I had to take a arts class basically to fill the core curriculum. And I ended up taking like some of my friends were like, oh, take theater. It's fun. It's kind of easy. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll do theater. So I ended up doing that. And the first thing I performed and put on, I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Like, where has this been my whole life? So that sort of led to me auditioning for a play at my school, which is Romeo and Juliet. And I ended up getting Romeo, which was very exciting. And then I did that. I did the play, and it's sort of like that's kind of where the I got the bug. And from there was I switched my major. I did a couple other plays at college, and then after college, I just was sort of like, sorry, I'm giving you my entire life story right now, not just and then yeah, after that I decided to it was sort of between like New York and LA. I'm from the East Coast originally, and I was like, man, I mean, New York seems easy, but LA feels like I'm really going for it if I go all the way out there. So I decided to go to LA. I gave myself a year and in hindsight, that's hilarious. It's like, yeah, I'll go out there and give myself a year. That's plenty of time to figure out if I can be an actor or not. And yeah, I sort of like a year to the date, I think I got my managers and started going out for like real auditions and sort of just snowballed from there. But that's sort of the genesis of my introduction to like acting, at least. Yeah.
Sometimes you find it in just the most unexpected places. Like you mentioned, it's like, where has theater, where has the arts been all my life when you had to take that elective in college? But
Right.
I'm so happy that it worked out for you, a
Thank
year
you.
to the
Yeah.
date. Were you ready to kind of pack up, or were you like, okay, I have to extend this 1 year?
No, I was definitely ready. And really quickly piggybacking on what you said, it's so funny to think about like what if you didn't take that class? Like what if you didn't go and you didn't have to take that class? Like what would you just miss out on that thing? And it just shows, like how one decision can impact so much your life. But anyway, no, I was after a year, I think I was very excited to stay. The first year was not easy. Like first couple months settling into LA is not the easiest thing because it's a big city, but everyone's sort of it feels like everyone's kind of here for themselves. They have their own agenda and they're all trying to make it as an artist, an actor, whatever. And so it's like you're surrounded by a lot of people, but you also feel kind of alone, which is I know it's a little cliche, but it's true. So yeah, I mean the first like 6 months was a big adjustment. And then I sort of like when I signed with my manager, I kind of met some of my some friends, and it sort of made it feel a bit more homey. And I think I was also just like, now that I'm getting real opportunities, I was like, no, I have to stay. This is it. Like this is what I came out for in the first place. So, felt like I had to. Yeah.
What was your major, if you don't mind me asking, before you switched?
I was studying economics and business, which just sort of felt like the default major of like all of my friends were going into business and economics, and it just felt like, oh, I'll do that because that's what everyone else is doing. I was really thinking for myself, and then yeah, I wasn't like that. It didn't particularly interest me, and I didn't think I was that good at it. So when theater came along, it was. And I felt good at it and I was excited about it. I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. Let's switch to that.
It's hard to do sometimes when you know your heart's not in it, but it's definitely kind of like the safe option. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like it's the norm, but I'm glad you kind of were able to branch out, which leads me to my next question, like were your family and friends supportive of this path for you? Because I know it wasn't easy that move to LA from Washington.
Yeah. It was. They were. I will say, like, my family is incredibly supportive. They the whole time. I think at first, the thing I would say that was the difficult part about it was not difficult, maybe that's not a good word, but it was almost like the shock factor of, oh, I'm doing theater now. Like going from never having talking about doing that, and then just telling everybody I know and love that, yeah, I'm studying theater now, and everyone kind of being like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, but they were all supportive and they all loved it. I had a lot of friends come see my plays in college, and my parents would always come down. And I think they, as far as my family goes, like they definitely didn't want me to move away. I think that part was hard because obviously it's hard for me too, being away from them. But they've been so supportive with my career the entire time. They've never been like, yeah, have you ever thought about maybe trying something else? Like the entire time I've been out here, they've always been supportive, which is I'm very lucky because I know there's a lot of people where it isn't that way. And that's like it's already an uphill battle. And if you don't have support from people that you care about, I mean, geez, it's gotta be impossible.
Who are some key people or places that have helped you develop your skills and intuition as an artist?
My theater professors at college, Shirley Kagan and Matt DeBroff were great. I mean, because they were my introduction to acting, and the first work I ever did was with them. So they were very inspiring and just the best mentors to have for something that I really didn't know a whole lot about. And they were just so supportive. And I went to a very small private school, and it was easy to kind of have that like hands-on relationship with them. So it was great. Like I would sometimes after rehearsals, I would stick around in the theater we had, and I would work through a scene with my professor or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just like those intimate connections that you probably wouldn't get otherwise. So I think I was very lucky in that sense because I went to a small school where it wasn't uber competitive to get parts. Like you still had to audition and all that, but I had a lot of opportunity early on to really like play and get to, test out like what I was capable as an actor. And I think if I didn't have that, then maybe I wouldn't know how much I enjoyed if I had only done like a really small part or something. You know what I mean? That's just like didn't fully, where I didn't like fully get to exercise what I, was capable of or whatever. And then when I got to LA, I started taking classes with Stan Kirsch, who passed away not too long ago, which is very sad. He's a wonderful man, and he sort of was the introduction to my manager. I went to this holiday party that I wasn't going to go to because I was like, I don't really know anyone. It was for the class, and I was sort of nervous about it, but I decided to go. I was like, you got to put yourself out there. So I went to this thing, and my manager Peter Clute and Tara Wheeler or Weiler were there, and they yeah, I guess they sort of noticed me and like said something to Stan, who then pulled me out of class the following week. And he was like, hey, there were some managers at the party and they want to meet with you. I was like, what? Like, oh my God, this is amazing. You got like, because of course I was still new to LA, and it was so exciting. But he was a huge influence. Like he really put a lot of faith in me. I think that helped me tremendously just with confidence and just to have someone who I really respected being like, yeah, like you can definitely do this and you should keep doing it. That was awesome. Like, because I didn't, up until that point, I'd gotten that at college, but I hadn't really gotten that in the LA scene and you know, so that was really cool. He was awesome. He was an amazing person.
It's so nice to kind of carry these people with you and those beliefs that they had and you can always like think back to them as your career progresses.
Mhm.
Do you have aspirations to return to your roots in theater and on the stage?
Yeah, definitely. I would love that. I feel like actually I recently had like a callback for a Broadway thing, which I would have been very fun to do, but It wasn't like that big of it would have been a really cool experience, and I hope to do that at some point. But there's also this part of me that's like I'm just sort of breaking into the TV film scene. Like I really want to capitalize on that in whatever or opportunities, not opportunities, I just said whatever opportunities come my way. Like I think I want to prioritize that right now, but there's definitely a part of me at some point that wants to go back into that. And also I've been curious just about like local, like small scale things just to keep the acting muscle going, you know. I'm sure there's uh maybe I'm being lazy about it. Like I'm sure there's something I could find, but no, I definitely do. I think theater to me is like the best training for an actor, and it's also just so enjoyable. And I love how when you're up there, it's just like you're just in it. There's no break. So you're in it for how an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. And that's amazing.
You did play the supporting role of Ivar in Rebel Moon Parts 1 and 2. To be a part of this epic world, Zack Snyder's creative vision, what did this project mean to you and your career?
That was so much fun, man. That was just such a cool, first and foremost, it was the most like movie, for a lack of a better term, like movie making experience I've ever had. I was like, this is incredible. I showed up and they had the whole set was practical and like built into the side of this mountain. They had this massive like 500-foot green screen. Like it was just incredible. I'd never seen anything like it. So, and then also that kind of, you know, along with costumes, you know, you're dressed in these like I was like a farmer, the villager, and I had like dirt on my face and all this like old, you know, like so that was so cool. And it was the most I sort of felt like it automatically puts you in the world just because of where the location you're in and also what you're wearing. So that was amazing. I think in terms of what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry, or I'm going off a tangent in the wrong way.
Just what did it mean to you and your career? And then
Yeah.
we can also go through like what it taught you about the industry being such a big scale.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for my career, you know, like I want to, it's funny, like it was, I was there for a while and I got like met wonderful people and got to work with, you know, Zack Snyder's amazing and all these other great actors. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about like being on set for a long period of time and just, you know, working in like a big ensemble. And that was awesome. It was really a great experience. I mean, I don't think like, you know, I didn't have a huge part necessarily. And so it wasn't like anything like my career didn't change from it necessarily. But for me personally, I got so much out of it. And there's like a confidence that comes with just having that experience. You know what I mean? Like the next thing you go on, you're sort of just a little more at ease because I mean, it's a new challenge every time. But like when you've been on something like that, it just, I don't know, like you're familiar with it enough, right? If that makes sense.
And the red carpet premieres don't hurt as well. I'm sure like
No, that was so
the
fun.
scale of it as well.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was so fun. That was amazing. I was so overwhelmed. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like it was great though. I had so much fun at that.
We'll get into Cobra Kai now, where we are discussing spoilers. So, for all those watching and listening, please make sure you have finished season 6, part 2 on Netflix before continuing. What can you share about your audition process for the show?
I'm like, I don't know if I should say. No, I should say this isn't like a bad thing. I was just saying when my manager first told me about the part, like he was like, yeah, I'm pitching you for this thing. I knew it was supposed to have the character was supposed to have an accent. And there was a part of me that was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, or I don't know if I want to do that. And they're probably just going to go with someone who is from that place, or, you know. So anyway, long story short, I do it as I'm taping it. It just feels very natural and for whatever reason just came to me really easily. And I was just having a lot of fun with it. I was like, this is actually kind of a you know, it's funny how those ones surprise you sometimes where you're not really, you know, then the other ones that you're like, oh my God, I want this so badly. Like sometimes that, but of course I wanted it. I just mean like I was a little intimidated by the role at first. And the breakdown was like, he's supposed to be this karate machine and it's just like, man, and you have to know martial arts. It's like, this is a lot of stuff that I hope I can fit this mold. Anyway, I do the tape, I get a call back for it, and I go into Sony and I have a director session, producer session with Josh, John, and Hayden, the showrunners and creators. And I don't know if it was just that day or I think it's them because they're all such nice guys. They just put me at so much ease. I just was in the room and I felt so relaxed and they were great. They just were so they gave me great direction. It just felt like it felt like more of a meeting than it felt like a callback. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't feel as rigid. It was more like, yeah, we're just kind of here to meet and talk about the character and run through the scenes. The funniest story I can tell you from the callback, it's sort of embarrassing, but I don't know why I did this, but so obviously this role required a lot of martial arts experience, which I actually didn't really have. I hadn't like I'd played sports my whole life, but I'd never done any martial arts. And so at one point they brought that up again in the room. They're like, "Hey, so yeah, like, well, what is your martial arts experience? Like, what have you done?" And in that moment, I'm not kidding. I don't know why I did this. It's hilarious. I leapt up in the air and did a kick. I have no idea why. I just like jumped up in the air and kicked. Just sort of, I was like, oh, I'll show them what I could. I think they were a little taken aback, like, oh, what is this guy doing? But maybe it looked good too. I guess it worked. But yeah, it was so random. I don't know why I did that.
They were probably thinking, "Oh, that guy has good form," and then I don't know, did they
I
cast
hope
you on the
so.
spot, or did they keep you hanging just a little bit
No,
longer?
yeah, they did not cast me on the spot. I think I found out the day after that I was like pinned for it, and then I think they cast me like it was on a Friday when I found out. They cast me on a Monday, so I had the weekend to wait. I was obviously like very excited, but it's the longest weekend ever when you have to wait for something like that, you know.
Especially
But
when you know you're being pinned and you're kind of like
yes,
in the depths of
and
that
sometimes
process.
it's yeah, 100%. So, but yeah, it was yeah, worked out, right?
Did you know, like, when your manager agent reached out that they were putting you in for this role, that it was Cobra Kai? Like, what was your familiarity with the franchise? If you didn't know, when did you find out it was for this show?
I knew it was Cobra Kai right away. I had seen the first season, but I'd seen it a long time ago. So obviously I was like familiar with the Karate Kid, and I knew that it was a good show and that it was doing great, and you know it was very popular. So I knew enough about like I'd heard the name enough, and I was familiar enough with it. But I wasn't completely caught up on everything like a diehard fan, which in some ways is nice. You know, like sometimes when you're too close to it, it's almost like it's like you know what I mean? It's like you're almost like it's too personal to you and you've too much in your head about like how to do it the right way. Sometimes when it's like something you don't know that much about, it's like, yeah, we'll give it a shot and see what happens, you know. I think it's easier sometimes.
Once you were cast, did you go back and watch the other seasons, or did you kind of not watch it? Because being a new character coming in, like you mentioned, I'm also thinking it is an advantage because then this character would know nothing about, Miyagi-Do, Cobra Kai, and care about
Right.
what's going on there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I did go back just because I felt like two things. I did go back and start watching because I felt like I should at least have like somewhat of a sense about what's going on, just for the sake of like if it pertains to anything that I'm doing in the scripts like later on down the line. But I also just for fun, I was like it'd be cool to. But I will say, as I was watching, I think the more you almost get like a little intimidated by it because you're watching it and you're like, oh wait, I'm gonna be in this and I'm gonna do like it almost is. It sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's like too close to home. I don't know, but no, but I enjoyed going back to it. It kind of got me excited for the new season, so it was a good thing to do.
Did you have to do a chemistry read opposite Mary or anyone else?
No, I didn't. I did not. No, I guess they just no, yeah, it was the initial audition and then the callback at Sony, and that was it.
Well, big congratulations on that. I'm sure a day
Thank
that you
you.
will never forget. So when you were cast, what additional training did you undergo? Like how much of what we see in part two is you versus your stunt double?
When I got to Atlanta, I the first couple days like we went right into a training basically. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was just like just like a general like physical test just to sort of see like where everyone was at. And there's a lot of people who are very experienced martial artists and I was on the beginner side of that. So it's a little nerve-wracking. You're like around people who've been doing it for, 6 years. Then you have like Rayna, who was with me coming in. She's just amazing. She's like a 13-time world champion. She's doing all these spinny, flippy kicks, and it's just crazy. And yeah, so we were working through just basic like kicks and stuff like that, just getting a sense of like just training the basics to get a feel for because those basics, like what I was told, and it's sort of true, there's like a basic set of moves that are applied to the choreography. Like, so if you understand X, Y, and Z, like certain kicks, they're gonna change a little bit and movement's gonna change. But if you understand how to do these like basic moves, you can kind of you can figure out the choreography a little bit better. But we really just had, yeah, we had a couple days and that was it. And then we got into the choreography stuff. And honestly, I'm amazed that it was so much work. But they're the best stunt team. They're incredible. And my stunt double in particular, Matt Mullins, he was amazing. Like he was so, I don't know what it was, but he's just, first of all, he's the nicest guy, but he was so good at getting through to me with showing me these things. And so I feel like I was able to pick it up pretty quickly and surprise myself a lot. But yeah, it was a lot of pressure because like then you have to show up and film it the next day and you only have like a day to film, you know what I mean? So you have to get it right. And there's a lot more people watching you and there's a lot more on the line when you're actually shooting it. And it's a lot to remember. Um, and it's like you also have to remember to act as you're doing these physical movements. Like you can't have like a stupid face on it to do it. You still have to like be in character. And my character in particular is supposed to be this karate machine that's like, you know, unstoppable force. So it's like I can't show any signs of like I'm struggling to do this right now, or it looks funny. It doesn't work for the character, right?
For sure, like any bit of pressure, you're like, I can't let it show, even if you're like, oh, I really need to nail this. And I'm sure inside you're kind of, those nerves are showing through a bit. But like you mentioned, for the camera, your face has to remain stoic. I'm glad that Matt was a good teacher for you, though. I'm sure your athletic background did come into handy during this part.
Yeah, I think it did. I think it did. And yeah, I mean, he honestly, so much props to him. And honestly, he almost was like, he was such a good teacher that I ended up, I mean, I did everything that we shot. I did at least like, I would run through all of it. They always will do like a stunt pass and they'll bring stunt people in for like particular things. And he's so fun to watch because he's amazing. And all the guys are great. So it's really fun to watch them. But yeah, I mean, I did basically everything. So like a lot of the stuff you see is going to be me. A lot of it will, you'll obviously see passes where it's like it is the stunt guy, like where it is Matt. But but yeah, I was like I wasn't sure how they were going to divide that up in the first place. So I was like, yeah, I was like, oh, I'll probably do like some of the easier stuff, but it's like, no, you're going to go through everything and learn everything, and then the stunt guys are going to come in and do their thing. But you still have to learn all of it. Yeah.
How would you describe Axel as a person, like personality wise, values, goals? What motivates him?
My take on him is he's sort of I feel like he's this amazing fighter and he's an incredible warrior, but I think there's two sides of him, and you see that in this next part again. Like I know we're kind of spoiling some stuff, but yeah, like I think he has this side of him, the fighting side of him where he can sort of just like kick into this gear of, and that's just, I think that's all related to how he's been trained and what he's been trained to care about. And I think like he does really care about that stuff, but I think what's really cool about his character is he doesn't just, you get to see another side of him, and you almost like in some ways you feel for him. So it's like it's tough because he seems like this jerk almost and this crazy guy who's just beating everybody up, but there's a sort of a gentle giant underneath that. And I think that's what's fun about playing him, because I think the first time the first like introduction to him, you're like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? But then like in the scenes where I actually start to talk and I have that scene with Mary and that conversation, you're like, oh, like this guy's a little different than what he seems when he was first introduced. So it was a fun character to play.
What did you focus on with respect to his voice, like you mentioned, finding that accent that ended up coming naturally to you, as well as some of his mannerisms and the physicality and movement side?
He's very stoic. He's a presence, and he's a man of few words. He doesn't say a lot. He speaks when it's important, and that's about it. So like it was really about just sort of because I'm a very, as you can see interviewing me, like I feel like I'm a lot different than the character. So it was a bit of a challenge for me to just sort of just go into this like lock into this mode of extreme focus and just sort of have like that's how I think of him is like he's just ultra focused on either the person he's fighting or if there's the girl like Mary like or Sam the girl he likes he's just sort of laser focused in and sort of one track mind but yeah like for me the physicality was just like being a towering force like trying to move and act like I'm just this like a big brick wall basically and sounding as deep and for my voice like intimidating as I possibly could because he has to be that if he isn't that way you don't believe the show just doesn't work you know like he has to feel that way or there's nothing you won't be intimidated by him he won't feel like you know so there's definitely a pressure for that just again coming in like I said with all these people who've been training and who are good fighters like coming into having to match that and level up and sort of act like I've been doing it for way longer than I have just so that these people can feel the difference like for in their characters was a challenge but I had a lot of fun doing it so yeah.
You have to play the part, you have to make it believable. And so he definitely has that brick wall presence. He's very
Yes.
like, tight feeling when, versus a loose, for example. Like it's always like there's something that he feels pressure about that he has to perform. Can you share any details you created yourself or discussed with others as to Axel's backstory and upbringing that we won't see on screen, but kind of helped inform you and shape him?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, a lot of it was on the page. I mean, it was pretty, the writing's great, and it was easy enough for me to figure out his motivations, like just based on the scripts I was getting. So the backstory, I didn't do as much work as I might have if like something wasn't clear, if it needed to be. But I just felt like he, not to say that he felt like he's obviously a complex character, like I was just saying. But yeah, I definitely felt like there was enough in the text for me to just understand his relationship with Sensei Wolf and how the treatment he's sort of taken from him in the last couple of years, and you kind of assume their relationship and what that's always been like because the fact that he's been getting hit by him for so long and none of the other students are like he doesn't think it's wrong. I mean, he has that line to Sam where he's sort of like my sensei wants me to be the best. It's because of him. So it's like he thinks that it's actually help. He's been conditioned to believe that this is actually helping him. And in the way he is with Mary, it's like it's sort of you just put yourself in the mindset of like a teenage boy who's never had, I don't imagine his life has been much outside of karate. And he's also like he's a 17-year-old boy and he sees a girl that he thinks is cute and he's feeling like a connection which is something I don't know if he's been allowed to feel or been exposed to or so it's like all those like just kind of remembering your first experiences of those feelings and kind of and I like I'm a bit older so like you have to remind yourself as an actor you have to like put yourself back in the shoes like what was I like when I was 17 and having an experience like that but yeah but I just think the dynamic between him and Wolf and then him and Sam was so much for me to work with already. I felt like I didn't really need to delve too much into a backstory to make him really interesting. I felt like it was already very interesting how it was written.
For sure. I think that was kind of going to connect to like my next question about how long do you imagine he's been training in karate for? Like, why did he start and why does he continue to train? Because typically, if he started when he's young, you think about family and that the impact that that could have had on him.
Yeah. I feel like he was put into it. I like to think of it as he's been training not out of sort of like a Tiger Woods situation, like not out of his own personal, like I don't feel that for him it was his choice to get into it. I feel like it's something he's been in since very early on in his life, and it's all that he knows. So it's like it is of utmost importance because that is what he was taught to care about. That's how for me that I think that works better than it's more because I think when something's like a personal choice, it just feels less like you know what I mean? Like when you're deciding to do something on your own, I don't know, like, but if you've been conditioned to think something is so important and you have to be the best at it, I think like if I think of people in my life who are that way, like most of my friends who just decided to do a sport on their own, they weren't like killing themselves over trying to be the best of it. But people who had parents who were like really intense about having to be like they're uber hard on themselves, and so I think I kind of compared it to that. But yeah, I think his upbringing is all. I think karate is all he's ever known. So I think seeing him, that's again going back to the relationship with or the dynamic with Mary, that's his first like he's so awkward and kind of goofy and like unsure of himself and what to do because it's so new to him. You know what I mean? Like most people that age at least probably would have, talked to like I think it's almost like as if he's never talked to a girl before, which is yeah, which is kind of sad and you feel for him.
How long do you imagine he's been with the Iron Dragons for? Like, what are Axel's thoughts on Sensei Wolf's training style? Like you mentioned, is
Well,
he fully all in because it's what he's been conditioned to know?
yeah, and I think they've won the Saikai Taikai before. So they're the defending world champions. And I believe I think he's won it more than once, if my memory serves me correctly. So I think look, if you're winning at that level, you just assume he's doing something right. You don't question it, like I think yeah, I think he just assumes that is the way his way of teaching is what is making him who he is. And I think it's almost like a superstition in a way because you don't look outside of it. You're just like, nope, this is what's worked before, and this is what's going to continue working. And honestly, in some ways, it probably has been working for like I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's like maybe that is the reason why it is the reason he's as tough as he is and as mean as he can be and as lethal as he can be, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing, and that's when he has that moment, yeah, again with Sam sort of helping him discover that or think about it at least, like having a new perspective on it. Whereas like I don't imagine the other Iron Dragon students, all people who want to win as well and subjected to the same kind of treatment, they're not, I don't know if it doesn't really feel like they're having conversations about like, is this okay? Is this something we should be tolerating? So yeah.
Take me through the beach and walk scenes between Axel and Sam. For Axel, like this is the most he's kind of spoken. So how vulnerable did he feel and what did he make of their conversation?
Yeah, it's definitely the most vulnerable he's been the entire, and you can see like in the beginning of the conversation, he's not like, I think the other, going back to what you just asked before, I mean, one of the first lines he has to her is he's not supposed to speak with the competition. Like that's again, like it's like we're sort of Iron Dragons are a unit and nobody else kind of, we don't like mingle. It's all about business. So I think yeah, initially I think it's like he already just kind of feels like he's breaking the rules, but I think as they start to have, she says what she says about what his Sensei Wolf was doing to him isn't right, and there's other ways and whatnot. And I think that yeah, I think it softens him a little bit because like people haven't seen him that way or care or like it's like the first time maybe he's feeling like he's being cared for someone who doesn't really know him that well. I think that just opens him up to being, but I think that's also why he almost like opens himself up to it's like oh my God, someone is showing interest in me and caring about me, not for being this great fighter just but for me as a person, and so I think that's why he almost like very quickly opens up to this crush that he sort of has on her, and that leads to him like eventually trying to kiss her on the beach, which I think is maybe like just a little faster than what most people would take. But it's more just like, oh my God, I've never experienced this care from someone before. So I'm gonna, which is again like kind of sweet and endearing, but also backfires in a way. And yeah.
Tell me about those emotions for him because, like you mentioned, this is like a 17-year-old, hasn't really had these experiences before. When Sam pulls away and tells Axel that she has a boyfriend, he makes a very quick exit. So, what is he feeling then?
Um, I think he's I think he's immediately protecting himself again. I think he's going right back into warrior mode. I think it's just sort of like embarrassment. Like I remember filming that scene and it's kind of funny in a way. It's just like, oh yeah, then he's running off. Yeah, I think it's a mixture of like this is why I don't stray from what I know, right? Like I think it's sort of like this is why we keep the yeah, just like the machine mindset at all times, just because it's just like I can't, especially in the middle of this tournament, like I can't afford to have these kind of. So I think that just like kicks him into a gear of, it just feeds what he like he's already a beast and it just feeds that even more. But I definitely think he is hurt. Like I think he's like again, yeah, he's a kid in a lot of ways. So it's like I think he is feeling it is emotional because he's like finally experiencing this thing and he thinks it's going this one way. Like we've all had stuff like that happen and it's devastating, and then for someone who's like, probably like pretty emotionally volatile just because of the way he's been conditioned and trained, yeah, I think it just turns him, he just sort of sees red after that. And that's what sort of leads to him like, the death stares with Miguel and yeah.
Before we get into those death stares and those moments, I wanted to ask, how was it working opposite Mary as Sam in those scenes? What can you say about her as a person and having her as a scene partner?
Mary is so sweet and she's so fun. Honestly, like I mean everybody was great and she was yeah, in particular was just so easy to it just felt like the most flowing easy conversation and yeah, she's great. She's a great actress. She really like keeps you in it and she's just like we were able to keep it so light and fun in between those takes and moments. So which just makes it so much easier to have a good scene. You're just like so she was wonderful. I loved working with Mary. It was really great.
Sam does not say who her boyfriend is, but again, Axel, he gathers it pretty quickly at the start of the tag team competition when he sees Sam and Miguel holding hands. So tell me about those death stares, because considering he doesn't know Miguel personally, like, where's this jealousy coming from?
I'm imagining that's how Sensei Wolf would tell him like to think about an opponent or something, just being like just conditioning him to see red when he sees anyone who's like at first it's yeah you think of it as like a karate opponent or whatever it may be, probably an opponent because that's what he's used to doing. I think he's just viewing him as exactly that. I think he's seeing him as like you are like the enemy now. And I think he's very good at doing that because you kind of have to have that mindset to win the way he does. So I think he's just immediately putting him into that category, like fueled by his jealousy, but immediately putting him into that category of like, you're the enemy and you're taking away this thing from me that I finally got to experience. So, like it stinks. It's a bummer because like you want him to be better than that. You know what I mean? Like you want him to be better than that, but in that moment, like he's just not. It's funny because yeah, you see that soft side of him and you're almost like you feel for him, but then you see this him immediately kind of snapping back into just anger and hate and then you're like oh wait, so maybe we don't feel that bad for this guy because he really has like like it's not you can't hate someone for just having for being the boyfriend of a girl, you know what I mean, like but he does.
Those looks that Jolo gives back to you of confusion, like, was it kind of funny to play off of those? Because it would zoom in on his face. And I mean, at that
Yeah,
point, he didn't know anything about their interaction. So he looks so confused.
to tell you the truth, that was one of the I'm not kidding, that was one of the hardest scenes not to break in. I have no like he was cracking me. He wasn't even trying. I don't think he was even trying to be funny. but he was cracking me up. Like every time he threw a look over to me, I was like, oh my God, I hope they cut soon. Like I'm gonna lose it. So I was just cracking up. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he's obviously like super confused. He's like, why is this guy singling? And he has no idea of what, because she hasn't been honest with him yet about what happened between them. So obviously, like, he has no context of like what this is coming from. But yeah, so it is funny. I think it's just kind of maybe it shouldn't be funny, but I find it kind of funny.
Something I wanted to talk about is Axel. He doesn't openly congratulate or celebrate his team's wins, like with Zara during her Tournament of Champions semifinal match. Can you tell me about that trait and the reasoning behind it for Axel?
Yeah, we just felt like collectively it was a better, and especially for him, it was just like we don't celebrate those things because that's what you should be doing. It's like you don't get a pat on the back for like, washing your hands or something. It's like you just are like winning is like what we do, and that's or what the Iron Dragons do. So I think that's where that comes from is you're just doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So I think it just makes us look more, it's like it's just more intimidating as well. Like, I think from a standpoint, like if I were me, Patrick, if I were like at a karate competition and there was like a group winning and just not celebrating and just like stoic and sort of intense, I think that just makes you way more of a force of, so I think that was sort of the idea is we don't Axel doesn't celebrate because yeah, this is exactly what you're winning and that's what you're supposed to do. And I don't expect you to celebrate with me, maybe. I mean, I know there are moments where they get like fired up, but it's not like a yay, we did it, like we won.
Axel faces Robby in the Tournament of Champions in his semifinals match. Does his sensei, do you think, off screen, like offer any words of encouragement? What is his game plan going into that match?
I think like initially no, because it shouldn't be. I think there's that frustration midway through the fight where it's sort of like when he yells at me, when Sensei Wolf yells at me to attack, it's like sort of like, why aren't you doing more? Like, why aren't like this shouldn't be, because I think it's like the mentality is it's never really, I mean, I've basically up until that point, there hasn't been a fight. Like I haven't, like every one that Zara and I have fought has been, we've beat them by a mile. Do you know what I mean? So it shouldn't be any different necessarily with Robby. Yeah, I would just say he's surprised that he's not like I think he's not going at it maybe with 100% force because he's assuming it's going to be easier. And then when Robbie's like blocking everything and they're sort of having it's like a little more evenly matched than he thinks it is, he's sort of like, okay, like what the heck? That's when Sensei Wolf yells and he kind of kicks it into high gear and starts, getting angry.
The unsanctioned dojo brawl, absolute chaos. How was that to film? And can you tell me about the work and rehearsals that went into what we see on screen?
Yeah, that was absolutely nuts. As you can imagine, probably it was so much going on. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of work. And there was so much going on, and I'm honestly amazed that we did it. I think we did it in like a day and a half or something crazy, which is I don't know how we did that. It was amazing. Yeah, I mean it was so in a way, I'll be honest, like for me in particular, it was in some ways it was, I mean, I had just prepped the fight with Robby leading up to that. So that was like my head was really focused on that and we did that. And then when it came to prepping the brawl stuff, like for me personally, it was almost a little bit easier just because I didn't have like the one-on-one fights were the harder ones because it was a lot of, it's like a lot of moves, a lot of beats within the fight that you had to know. So yeah, when it came to the brawl, it was different like pockets, but the way we shot it, it was like broken up a bit. So it was nice. I mean, I had obviously with Brandon with Kwon, that was a lot. Like the moves that we were doing in that sequence were tough but it was chaotic, but very fun. And everyone was on set. So I kind of loved it. It was just like all the stunt people, all the actors, like everyone's there doing something. So it was a fun, crazy day. long hours, but very fun, and I think it turned out great. So yeah, it was awesome.
Mid-fight, Axel sees Kwon kick Sam really hard.
That's not
He
good. Yeah.
he goes after Kwon. There's so much fighting going on. So tell me about that decision for Axel and letting Miguel go in the process.
So Miguel, it's like the reason he's fighting Miguel is because of Sam. So I think like, like she is the ultimate, I mean, he wants to protect her, and I think like seeing her get hurt just kicks him into an even higher level of like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it's like he's tussling with Miguel, but like he's doing that because of what happened with between him and Sam. So it's like he's not like he kind of dumps him off to the side, because he's just not the priority anymore. He's like he has to defend her. And I also think that's awesome just because, I feel like Axel and Kwon needed to have a fight, Like so that was cool.
So when they're fighting, he first of all he kicks Kwon into the camera. Kwon looks on the floor. He sees the Unjangdo, picks
Yeah.
it up as they prepare to resume fighting. In your eyes, what did Axel see? Like, what is he thinking, and is there any fear in him?
As an actor, I just played it like there wasn't because I just think like Kwon is Kwon is too good of a fighter to like I think if I had any fear in that moment, like I think I would have, I just think he was again, I think he already was in like kicked into a gear that he was so locked into what, his task like in defeating him and or whatever. Like I don't think I think if there was any part of him that was really fearful about it, he probably wouldn't have been able to like be capable of, doing what he did. It's like a sports analogy. I mean, like when you're just like so in already like invested in something and it's like a high pressure situation, like you kind of just you're already in this place mentally where you just sort of you almost like don't have time. Like there wasn't enough time for him to think about being scared. That's at least how like my interpretation of it.
I definitely didn't see any flinching from Axel's part. So I think
Yeah.
that you played off of that, like being kind of in
Yeah.
the zone well. But like just to clarify, you think that Axel did see him pick up the knife. Is that correct?
Okay, honestly, I was man, it's so funny. This is terrible. I should know. I should really know this. But I don't know. I think like part of me thinks no because I well hmm, man, you stumped me with this one. No, I feel like yet like the way I was like when I'm thinking back to the situation, like it's not obvious that he has the knife. Like he doesn't like he's not like showing it to me or anything. You know what I mean? Like he's not like making it like we have a little kicking match and we're doing all these things like before the knife even like in the way he falls on it. So I think it's more like I think if I knew that he had the knife, maybe it would have been a little different the way like I think that's also why it's like it's still a absolute shock to Axel when spoiler when he does fall on it. So you know what I mean? Like I think he probably wouldn't have like if the guy was actually trying to like if he knew he was like literally trying to kill him with a knife, I feel like it maybe wouldn't have been as much of a shock if when that happened. So yeah, no, I'll stick with like I don't think he really necessarily knew that he had it. Hopefully I'm right about
That's an interesting interpretation. Thank you for sharing that
that.
because I spoke with Brandon like a couple of weeks ago, and he also thought that Kwon was hiding the knife, kind of, even though in the
Yeah.
show, like, I don't know if you've seen part two yet.
I haven't. No, I mean the audience definitely obviously like the audience is, tipped off to it. Like they see that he's grabbed it, of course, but yeah, I think he's sort of hiding it. That's what I would say too. Interesting that Brandon said that as well.
Yeah, because I thought that Axel for sure saw, and that's because Daniel LaRusso mid-match, there's a part where he kind of, I think he sees that Kwon has picked up that knife. So I was like, oh, if Daniel can see it from far away, can't the other students see it? But maybe it was just, they're so in the moment that he doesn't see that he has kind of the knife hidden. Axel, of course, getting Kwon's lower leg first mid-air as Kwon is falling, as he lands on the knife, he lets out this giant scream. So with that interpretation in mind, like what is Axel thinking happened, seeing him on the mat not moving?
I mean, I think it's all like yeah, it's immediately it's just a shock and everyone kind of like the whole it's funny like the entire brawl just like stops to see what's happening. And I think it's sort of like as the blood starts to trickle out, it's like, oh God, like is he, So it's like it's immediate, it's like it's all not to say it's all fun and games fighting because it's not all fun and games, but kind of until somebody dies and then it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, so he's just shocked and I think feels horrible, obviously. Like I don't think he like obviously like didn't mean to, I think if he like meant to kill him, it'd be a very different character. But yeah, no, that was a crazy, crazy moment. Also, the timing of that kick was ridiculous because, or first of all, he's like Brandon's amazing. Like he's incredible. I've never. He's so talented. But he did that. I forget what. Like he was spinning and I was spinning. We had to time it out perfectly where I kind of kick him as he's spinning around. So that was a fun little challenge. But yeah, no. When he falls on the knife, I think it's just sort of like you hear him scream, and it's just sort of like, oh wait, this is different than like this something really bad has happened.
Brandon also mentioned that you two kind of had to workshop that kick and figuring out a move that he would fall kind of on the knife that would, kind of impale him. And he said that you did a fantastic job. So
Oh,
kudos.
that's very nice. Yeah. I wish I could say the same about him, but he's, no, totally kidding. No, yeah, that's awesome. That's nice you said that. We did. That was like because it's a little awkward. It's like you don't know how to it's like you can't be too on the nose about it and like fall. It has to be subtle enough where we don't know exactly what it is at first. And then so yeah, we did have to workshop it a bit, but I'm happy with how it turned out, hopefully.
When you read the scripts and you saw that your character would be involved with this death, what were your first reactions? Because keep in mind, like having yourself kind of watched the series back, like we don't really see characters in this franchise, in this world, die
Mm.
during karate fights, much less more like the children, the youth characters.
No, it's very true. My first thought was, gosh, everyone's gonna hate me. Everyone's gonna like be like, oh, this guy. No, I mean, yeah, it was definitely, I think, kind of like as an actor, I was like, oh, like this is it's kind of cool. It's like kind of cool to be involved in like a pretty like big moment in a show. Like, so it's exciting for that reason. But and I just am imagining like the fan base going crazy because he's such a on is such a loved character in the sense of like he's just like from what I can tell from fan like people are just amazed by him and what he's able to do. I know he's like technically a bad guy in a lot of ways in the show, but like he's still just a very fun character to watch and he does such a great job. Yeah, it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of exciting. It's cool. Like, it just I think it just like adds layers to the character and makes it more complex and more fun to play and just does more for like my storyline. And it's just I think it adds like a new level of like tension to the show, which is cool too, because it's like it's such an unexpected thing. So it's just good all around. It's not good. I'm saying it's so great that he dies, you know? No, it's but you know what I mean? Like just for the sake of tension building.
It really reminds us that the stakes are high because I think that when nothing kind of happens, you kind of forget that this is like a really dangerous sport to get into, and there's dangerous things, unfortunate things that can happen. Who was your favorite sparring partner in the cast? Like, was there someone you were the most excited to go up against, whether it was in the show or even, in training and in rehearsals?
That's a great question. Mm, so I think like I would say Tanner probably. Like we had just good like I just enjoyed I feel like we always, you know, because we worked, like we just had a friendship and also he just was like yeah, I think we just like really had like we matched each other's intensity really well when we fought. Like I feel like we it was both like because a lot of the stuff you're doing is again, it's like there is like an element of risk involved because you are doing it full speed, like you are doing like the cameras are, like in some ways like the way they shoot it, like it's there's obviously like that element to it, but in terms of the fighting, like you really are doing it full speed and kind of giving it your all. So like you do end up getting a little bruised up or kicked sometimes, or and I think he and I just really matched each other's intensity really well. Like I think he every time, like I think just fighting him, he just brought an energy that I was like, yeah, I like this. It was easy to match it and go pretty intense. Whereas like I think with sometimes like when you're fighting other people, like if you I don't know, like you don't know if you're like, oh, am I going too hard? Am I not doing too much? Like it just kind of gelled nicely. So he was really fun to fight. I'll say him.
And there's also like a big level of trust as well. I'm sure that's
Mm.
needed in these fight scenes and moments like that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
You were one of the, I guess I should say, lucky cast members who got to travel to Barcelona for filming. How was your time over there? And seeing those leaked photos of yourself, hanging out with the cast in your
It was crazy.
downtime, like, were you like, wow, people are really on it?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I was like, I didn't even, I mean, I had no idea how big the fan base was, and especially like over in Europe too. When I first got there, I was like, I mean, they're getting stopped like every second. I was just like, this is crazy. And then yeah, seeing the leak, like there's a video out there right now about like I'm just like, this is crazy. I've never experienced anything like that. So it's exciting and gets me even more excited for the show to drop. But yeah, no, it was crazy. Barcelona was amazing. I mean, I've traveled a couple times for work, but that was the first time that I've like gone somewhere just beautiful. And it kind of felt it was great. So I don't sleep on planes. So I flew in. I can't sleep on planes. I don't know why. I have a fear of waking up and something happening. Um, but yeah, I was 9 hour flight to Barcelona, and then we got in, and it was afternoon, I think, when we got there. So I hadn't slept at all because we left at, and basically we went right into, I had like a couple hours or something at the hotel, not enough time. I couldn't even sleep. I tried to take a nap. I couldn't. Then we went right into filming. So I was filming the first day, that first scene on no sleep and just sort of like, oh my gosh, where am I right now? But it was great. It worked out great. And then I had 3 days to sort of just hang out. We went to a soccer game. We explored a bunch. I kind of just hung out on set and went around to the other shooting locations. I had so much fun. It was amazing. Yeah, I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Who were the cast that were with you in Barcelona?
It was Ralph, um, Billy, Mary, Tanner, and Sholo, and I think that was it.
So it was
Maybe,
like you and like the main cast.
and
So
then they
I'm
guys,
sure
yeah. So it's great.
great bonding experience for
Yeah, it
you
was
getting that
awesome.
opportunity.
So much fun. Yeah, it was amazing. Like it was so yeah, I felt very lucky to be one of the people like going. I was like, oh, this is great. Like got super lucky that one of my scenes happened to be,
It was
and
the beach scene, right?
yeah, yeah. So that's in Barcelona. Yeah, it's cool.
You also worked closely with Rayna Vallandingham and Lewis Tan as part of the Iron Dragons. How was it to work with them and be challenged by their athletic abilities?
That was awesome. Yeah, I mean, Raina's like the sweetest person ever. She's so nice, and she's just like, yeah, she's so nice. She's so easy to work with, and like I said earlier, she's incredible. Like she's so quick, and what she can do is amazing. Like she had a lot of people on set being like, "Whoa, like this girl's amazing." She was great. We had a lot of fun. And Lewis is awesome too, and definitely like brought the intimidation factor. Like I think the dynamic between like having him just being like physically a pretty like imposing guy and like pretty intimidating. Very nice guy, but I just mean like just it worked. I think that it worked really well for our character dynamics and but I loved working with both of them. They were so much fun. They're great.
I did have to ask about the fans. Like, how excited are you for them to meet Axel? Because I was seeing on Instagram that there's already like people have done fan art for your character already. Like,
Yeah.
there's like this kind of artwork, and there's a
Yeah,
couple
that's
of them out
crazy.
there.
Um, Gosh, I mean, I think like all you can it's so exciting, but it's also like nerve-wracking because you just want it to you're like hoping that he's received well and people like him. So I'm pretty hopeful for it, but I think like yeah, I mean, we'll see. I hope I hope it goes great. But I'm super excited. I'm very ready for the show to come out, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, yeah, be great.
I love what you said in a past interview about success, and it does not have to be as tangible as people make it. So, to you, success is a way of life. Keeping that mantra in mind, do you have any goals in the industry, say in the next 5 years' time, that you hope to accomplish?
You can get specific all you want about what you want to do, and I think you should do that in some ways, but I also think it's good to just be open to opportunities as they come. So for me, it's like if I get to work with a great director, amazing. If I get to work with, someone, it's like a small part, but I really like the script or whatever, or it's just do it. Just do it because you just want to get better, and improve.
That's perfect. Just making the most out of opportunities, continuing to, soak in things like a sponge. In 2020, you said that you were writing a screenplay for a feature film thriller. Are you still working
Oh
on
gosh,
original stuff?
that's hilarious. Good research. No, I will write occasionally. I feel like every time I really get excited about writing, I'll book an acting job and then I forget about it. I swear, like that's how it happens. But I'm trying to that is something I've sort of tucked away, but I've been writing like some sketch comedy and I've been, some stuff I want to make with friends, more like smaller scale stuff now because it feels a little more like tangible, like something I could produce on my own, like not something I would have to go to like a studio to get made. I think that's sort of what I'm focusing on. But yeah, there's stuff I'm trying to develop with friends right now, like smaller, very smaller, much smaller scale things. But yeah, I still enjoy it. I think like if you're a creative person in general and you actors, when you're on set, you're super busy, but sometimes you have so much downtime and you just want to fill it with something and not just be waiting around for a job. So even though I don't consider myself a great writer, I still like to do it, as often as I can. Yeah. I probably shouldn't tell you ideas. I don't know if they're like fleshed out enough to
It's
talk
good to
about.
exercise the creative muscle. So I hope we get to see some of those original projects, even like short films in the future. Your
Oh,
partner, Elle, she's also
yeah.
an artist. You've modeled together. You've acted in a comedy sketch that she's written and
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
co-directed.
Good. That's awesome. You saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great
Oh.
quick watch. How special is it to collaborate in your work and be inspired by each other?
It's huge. I mean, we help each other all the time. I mean, like I think it's really great to have a partner who like understands what you're doing and to be able to work together. And yeah, when she wrote that sketch, I mean, she's so funny and she wrote it so quickly for a friend and me and like directed it and it was just so I was like, oh, this is so cool that this is possible. Like we live in a time where you can just do that. You can write something and shoot it the next day because we all have access to phones and cameras and stuff. Or not all, but I mean it's easier to have access to that stuff than it ever has been. But she's great. She's working on a show right now called The Madison, which is super exciting. So I was just she's in Montana. I was just visiting her.
I was going to mention that it was announced in August that she was cast in the
Yes.
Yellowstone spin-off, which is so
Yeah.
exciting.
So cool.
Did you bring Gus along as well, or
Yeah. Oh, you know about Gus. That's awesome. She brought Gus. Yeah. She likes having
oh,
him there.
she has Gus with
She has him.
her.
She has him. Yeah. He's a mountain man now. Or mountain cat. She does just because like, when you move to a new place, you don't really, it's nice to like have something with you, like have a pet with you or somebody, just because like when you're not filming, it can get a little bit lonely sometimes, like when you're a bit isolated, but she's enjoying having him there. And yeah, it's Montana's, I'd never been. It was my first time going. It's so beautiful. So she's having the time of her life and I'm super proud of her. It's exciting.
That's so sweet. You both are making very big moves, and I hope you get the
Yeah.
chance to visit her again. But I have one more question. If you could be any ice cream flavor, which would you be and why?
Cookies and cream. I've always been actually okay. Wait, cookies and cream is like tradition. Now you've asked. This is a real thinker. No, cookies and cream has always been my favorite. But what is the name? Oh yeah, have you been to Jenny's? Do you know Jenny's ice cream? Oh my gosh, but you gotta go to Jenny's. They have this ice cream flavor called the gooey butter cake. I think it's my favorite. It's literally like my favorite. I would get it every day if I could. I'd be that.
That sounds like a really good flavor. I'll have to check it. Is it only an American thing in the States?
I think it is. Where are you? Where are you located?
Canada,
You're in Canada. What part of Canada are you in?
Vancouver
I was
area.
just in Vancouver.
Oh,
For,
no way.
yeah, that's awesome. I love Vancouver. It's so nice. And now I'm gonna interview you. So
We'll
anyway,
talk
yeah.
about Vancouver briefly after, but
Yeah.
I'll wrap up the interview portion. Thank you so much, Patrick, for taking the time to chat about your character. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This was really great. It was awesome talking to you. Thanks for the great questions.
Of course, I hope we can chat again in the future for your other work. But until then, for all those watching, you can catch Patrick in Cobra Kai Season 6. Part 2 is out November 15th on Netflix, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.